So this is for a cooldown, lesson 9, solving quadratic equations by using factored form. And the cooldown's called Conquering More Equations. So recently we learned some strategies for turning expressions from standard form into factored form. And we've also seen that when a quadratic expression is in factored form, it's pretty easy to find zeros. So if we take a look at this equation, x times x plus 4 equals 0, well, we know that if x is 0, then this whole expression is equal to 0. Or if x plus 4 is equal to 0, well, 0 times whatever x is would also be 0. That's called the zero product property. With the zero product property, when we have one thing times another, either thing equal to 0, either thing equal to 0 will make a solution. So if x is 0, or if x is negative 4, that will give us a solution. Now, we can put this together, writing quadratic expressions in factored form and using the zero product property with a factored expression to figure out solutions to this equation. For example, we have this quadratic equation, and if I subtract 140 from both sides, I get this quadratic equation, which can be rewritten into factored form. And if we rewrite that into factored form, then we can see either n minus 14 could be equal to 0 or n plus 10 could equal 0. That's why we have this separated now into two separate equations. Each of those equations we just need to solve. So this one over here, we add 14 to both sides, and we get n equals 14. Over here, we can just subtract 10 from both sides, and we get n equals negative 10. Or you could just look at it and you know what number minus 14 equals 0. Well, 14 minus 14 is 0, or negative 10 plus 10 equals 0. You don't necessarily have to go through and solve it, but you will come across ones that are a little more complicated later on, and it's good practice to take each factor, write it equal to 0, and then solve. Now, we can use this on these cooldowns. Well, first of all, this right here, it's a quadratic equal to 0. If we can rewrite this in factored form, then we could take each of those factors and set them equal to 0. So numbers that add up to 12 and multiply to 11 would be 11 and 1. And what you would do then is you would take x plus 11 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. Because if either of those is equal to 0, then the whole expression is equal to 0. And then you can solve each of those equations separately. Or again, what plus 1 equals 0? Well, it's negative 1. Same thing here. The answer to this is negative 11. So for this one, we would say x equals 1, negative 1, or x equals negative 11. You could even write the word or in between those two. Doesn't really matter. And that's what you got to do. For this one, we have a quadratic expression on the left equals 1. Make sure that this is equal to 0 first. Same thing down here. Make sure that's equal to 0, and then rewrite both of these in factored form and take each of the factors and set it equal to 0 and solve. If you have any questions, let me know.